Depression is a sneaky little guy or little gal. Depression can show up in many different ways. It can maybe look like one thing one week and look like something completely different. It's gonna look like something very different for me than it maybe does for my best friend. And so it can be really, really hard to say, like, here are the 5 things to do to deal with depression. But I'm just gonna kind of give a general, if depression shows up, here are maybe some general ways to, one, identify it, and 2, deal with it. So to identify depression, this is the like clinical verbiage on what we would be looking for. We're looking for a change in mood, a change in activity levels, and a change in maybe our thoughts. So I'll just kind of speak for myself. When depression shows up for me, I get really sleepy. I want to sleep more. I feel irritated and irritable a lot more. I get frustrated when people ask me to engage in things. I find myself wanting to retreat and retract, and I just kind of want to go into hibernation mode. My body will actually feel heavy. And my mind, what starts happening is in my mind is I start having this negative dialogue of telling myself, like, you're not good enough. Why would you even try to do that, right? There's like, it's like this little gremlin that sneaks in and is kind of like a little jerk. That for me is what it looks and feels like for depression. It's just kind of like a heaviness. Sometimes hopelessness will show up. And when hopelessness shows up, I find myself not trying things that maybe take a little bit more energy or a little bit more risk. I might just keep things super status quo and do the bare minimum because I just kind of physically and mentally, emotionally can't take on anything else. When we are looking at diet, maybe we eat a little bit more, a little bit less. I tend to eat a little bit more when depression shows up. I tend to get a little bit less movement, more hunger, and then, like I said, just like that sleepiness and not wanting to engage. Now, step number 2 of that is being able to recognize what are some of the things that are going to be helpful. For depression, it's all about contrary action. So my head is going to tell me one thing. It's going to say, you really shouldn't get up. Like, what is the point? Let's just stay in bed 1 more hour. For me, it's maybe let's just stay in bed a few more hours. The contrary action is doing the opposite of what my head or my body is telling me to do because I know that it's actually going to benefit me. So it would be sticking to my routine. So getting up around the same time that I normally get up. I have to actually like really, really, really take notice of making sure that I'm hydrated. I want to drink a lot of coffee when depression shows up, or maybe eat a lot of sugar because I do feel so lethargic. So I have to make sure that I'm really hydrating. I have to make sure that I'm still eating, maybe like not eating more than I normally would or less than I normally would. So it's just being very, very, very cognizant. And now this is very difficult to do when depression shows up because depression gets your head all fuzzy. So it's kind of having these, knowing what my normal routines are and what it looks like when I'm practicing well-being and sticking to those. It's your first time really trying to buck up against depression. I would say your first step is going to be just start debating with the thoughts that are in your head. Depression shows up in, like I said, this like sneaky way that many times is not helpful. Depression kind of wants us many times to kind of just be alone and start to build in this sense of hopelessness. And so what we want to do is we want to debate with what depression is telling us, and then we can really start to actually deny, and we can start to go into taking that contrary action. So kind of going against what depression is telling us and really starting to engage with the things that maybe well-being would tell us instead.